What do you know? I didn't hear.
No, all I know is like who has more cleaning chores and who's sleeping and what time Mincha and Marvin.
You ready? All right. So this is the parsha. This is the parsha of the Geula. We actually leave. What? It's going to start off? Okay. Okay. And okay, we'll try to touch on certain parts of it. Right at the beginning, Hashem tells Moshe, Boy el Paro, come to Paro. And Rashi says, V'hisro Bey, and it warned him. And then the Pasuk goes on to say, Ki ani hibaditi es libo, because I have hardened his heart. And I hardened his heart in order to bring about that, to do all the nisim and all the oasis, and that Eden should remember for all time how the Rebbeinu had played a game with Paro. There's a very insightful sikha from Rebbe. But the Rebbe says, what is the point of Rashi to say that V'hisrobe, should warn him? Moshe goes to Pari, and in all cases he has to warn him, tell him about the Makis. But then the Pasuk says that he should know that the warning essentially is not going to help, because I hardened his heart. So how is it going to help? So what's the point of warning him? And yet Hashem sends Moshe to go and warn Pari. That seems to be contradictory. And the message and implication in this is that even when a person like Pari has reached such a low ebb, a low level, to the extent where Hashem does not even give him, not only doesn't give him a chance to tshuva, but hardens his heart. He acts, so to speak, irrationally against his own benefit and against his own good, which is the most severe type of punishment that can come on a person. Normally, a person has his head on straight and is interested in his benefit, interested in the benefit of his country. Except sometimes he doesn't understand what's good for him. He thinks he's going to win out a different way, but some kind of rationalization. And here, there was completely irrational. And as you learned already in the seed, 10 times, one after the other, he gives in while the maki is hitting him, and then he changes his mind. So clearly he has lost all rationale. And this is a punishment. As it's explained in Sforim, and Chassidus brings it down, that sometimes a person the person is punished in this manner because he had willingly, by his self-choice, by his own choice, has dug in so deeply that the Rebbe then drains him even further in order to be a teaching for others. So he's no longer really in his own domain. Nevertheless, even if he reached that level, there is still a certain manner that he can come out of this. This is why it says Hisra, you should warn you. This is the cloud that it says about the tshuva. That there are people that you must speak in the other must sometimes a person reaches a stage where he's not given a chance to do tshuva. Because normally it says that when the person just wants to do tshuva, immediately the Rebbe helps him. As soon as a person just wants to turn, he immediately gets assistance. But and then there is one who has reached a deeper lowliness, and he's not assisted. So he must speak. He is not given assistance. And sometimes he's beyond giving assistance. He is assisted going the other way. But still, if he insists stubbornly to break away and to do tshuva, it's called dochet nishnas. He pushes his way in. Ultimately, he will be allowed to come back in. In other words, there is really no such a thing as the door is completely closed. There is always a possibility for a person to push his way in, back into Avodas Hashem, back into the Matu Hashem. This is symbolized later on in this parsha. We have the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. And Korban Pesach comes together with matzah. This is when the mitzvah of matzah is given the first time. And also forbidding to eat chometz. And it's explained what in fact is the difference between chometz and matzah. They're very, very similar. The ingredients of chometz and the ingredients of matzah, somebody knows what ingredients is? What constitutes, what you put together into chometz and matzah is exactly the same thing, water and flour. So it's exactly the same type of food, in essence. And the word chometz and the word matzah are also almost identically spelled. There's only one difference. Chometz is a ches, and the matzah is a hay. The ches and the hay are also very similar. There are two aces that look almost identical. What is the difference? That in the hay there's an opening on top, and in the ches there is no opening. And what is this tremendous difference? There's an opening on the bottom. A person, because of his nature, because of whatever the Yetzer Hara is being pulled downwards. This is called the opening downwards. This being pulled downwards is constant. This is something which is constant in the person. This is the Yetzer Hara starts working on us from birth. We get allured by all kinds of gashmistic things. When we grow up, it is more than gashmistic thing. It's all kinds of different interests and so forth. We're constantly being pulled into worldly interests downwards. And here comes to the fore the difference between the chometz and the ches and the hay. The ches is closed up on the top completely, so that you're only aware of the possibility of going downwards. The hay, no matter what your circumstance is, even though you may be pulled downwards, but you also have a sense all the time that there is also an opening upwards. There's an alternative. There's another way. This alternative this view that there is also a possibility of going upwards, this is the whole difference between chometz and matzah. And this difference has a very far and deep effect on the person, where I'm not going to talk about chometz, talk about matzah. The whole process of avodas Hashem, the whole process of avodah in general, we are in constant struggle from the beginning of time. The constant struggle. Nothing comes easy, and this is how it's meant to be. Anything that a person is to accomplish in this world, it has to be accomplished through struggle and through hard work. Like it says, Odom lo omol yivolet. A person was born to labor. This labor is not just in vain to make a person tired. This labor is a means by which we actually affect, and we actually have an effect on the world. We have to change, make a very profound effect and change in the world. This is how we fulfill a godly mission. This is a shlichus. This is not just an individual situation. I'm confronted with difficulty. This is a godly shlichus. The Adam Rishon was created even before the Ched. He was put in the Gan Eden, le'ovdo l'shomro, to labor in the Gan Eden. Certainly after the Ched, the whole mission, the human mission, is to labor and to correct and to elevate the world. Every difficulty that a person faces is a difficulty that is there because there is something in his world that needs to be corrected, needs to be purified, needs to be elevated. This is what our life is in general. Everything comes with difficulty. Like we've learned that even if you want to learn and understand the Mishnah and it comes with difficulty, that itself is a sign that there is some kind of a klipa hiding the truth of this Mishnah. And we have to break through it. The symbol of the hay is for us to recognize that even while we are in tremendous predicament, and we have to work very hard, and we have a lot of nisyonos, and everything seems to be drawing us downwards. We have to always remember that we always connected upwards. There is always the highest that comes from above, and that can bring light and illuminate and elevate us and raise us back up to the highest heights. This is the hay. That's similar to the ches. There's a big opening in the bottom, but there is also an opening on the top that can always raise us upwards. This is what we discussed numerous times, pointed out. That just as in our physical life, when we have any kind of a damage, and say that person gets a cut on his finger, so even though his finger is physically cut, this physical cut needs to be attended to. And it can be infected, and you have to be careful. It shouldn't get infected. It shouldn't cause a lot of problems. But at the same time, we have to remember that this cut is only superficial, that the neshama, the chayis in the hand, the chayis in this finger, that flows from the neshama, has not been damaged. That cannot be damaged. That is still flowing through the person. The neshama is whole regardless of what the circumstances. There is always the chayis coming from up above. The only thing is, we have to. This is the the requirement of the Aveda to look up to that and recognize that this damage that we have is not real, and that there is always the highest coming from above, and the highest coming from above is what is going to correct the damage. Because how, in fact, does a finger heal if it gets cut? Everybody knows you can heal. Your finger gets cut, you put a Band-Aid on, and 2 or 3 days later you took off the Band-Aid and there's no sign of it. You don't even know where the cut was. What happened? It was healed. How did it get healed? It got healed because it was a living finger, and there was a neshama in it which was whole, and the neshama that's in the finger knew exactly what the finger is supposed to look like. And it caused and it directed the molecules to reconnect exactly the way that it should be. Because that house has not been damaged.
When you have, from the cut, you have like the marks, so that's how it's supposed to be, because Neshama knows that that's the way it's supposed to be.
Normally, you don't have much from a cut. I'm saying if it's normally you don't have a maximum cut. If it goes deeper than the surface, even then, if it's put together properly, it won't have any mark. If it was not put together properly, like I always point out, if a person has a cut and he waits for it to heal and is constantly looking back, is it healing? It's never going to heal. And that's when you're going to have a mark. But if you cover it up with a Band-Aid and you let the neshama take care, then it heals. And the same is true in our internal struggles. In our internal struggles, we have also what we call emotional and psychological difficulties. We have to understand that these difficulties really need to be attended to, need to heal. And they have to do the right thing in order for them to heal. But the most important element in healing is to allow the neshama to flow in, to come back and to heal it. If we start attending to them directly, then we do more damage than good. Just like in the finger, you do more damage if you start looking at the finger. The best thing is to cover it up with a Band-Aid, protect it against infection, and let it heal. Because the neshama knows exactly what the finger is supposed to look like. Much better than us looking at it.
What does mean an avoid that? How you
Okay.
avoid the neshama?
What means an avodah is as follows. Chassidus teaches us that under all circumstances, a person, like I said, a person can start doing avodas Hashem at any time. Whether he understands or doesn't, whether he feels for it or doesn't, if he knows this is the truth, he can start doing avodas Hashem. And how does he know what to do? The purpose of the Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan says, do this and this and that. And he does it, even though he does not have any understanding, any feeling for it. If he does the right thing, what happens, this provides the keli for the neshama to come in. After a while, he begins to feel, hey, this is really right. It really makes sense. Really fits the reality as I see it. For instance, we always speak about Moide Ani. A person wakes up in the morning and says Moide Ani. At first he says Moide Ani, he doesn't know what he's saying. Even though the word Moide already means he doesn't really understand this. Moide, I submit, I agree. But after a while, he begins to recognize that indeed, when one wakes up in the morning, he recognizes that this waking up was not something, a natural thing, that the neshama was restored to him, refreshed, and he really recognizes that something very significant happened. This is the principle that we always say, that Torah was given on the basis of Nasa and Nishma. If you need Nishma, if you need to understand, why do you need a Nasa? Go understand. Like I pointed out, that it's not just that they didn't accept it, because if it's only accepting, so what do you need a Nishma for? Just I'll say Nasa. He even said Nasa first twice without Nishma. And that did not give him the Torah, but gave him the Torah when he said Nasa then Nishma. Why? Because really Hashem wants that we should understand, we should feel, we should know what we're doing. But the only way to understand and to know what we're doing is to first nasa, to relate to it and to provide the kelim by which we can come to understand and to know. So, coming back to this hay, to the matzah, so the principle of the hay is that the hay has an opening on top, which means that there is always the looking at, the focusing, the recognizing that yes, indeed, I am doing everything here below. I'm doing the Kabbalah, so and so forth, but really there is a chayes that comes into it. It doesn't end at this. Doesn't end at this just following through and doing what I'm doing. This is going to bring in the chayes from above, bring in the chayes hanefesh, bring in the chayes, the God the chayes, that will be mechaya and bring life to this world, to bring life to me and to the world. It is not merely, so to speak, doing things by rote. Like I pointed out, that when Eden said Nasa by itself, the Rebbe didn't give him the Torah. The Rebbe gave him the Torah when they said Nasa then Yishma. The other difference between Chometz and Matzah, we pointed out, they constitute, their ingredients are exactly identical, except Chometz rises up, and Matzah does not rise up. This principle of rising up and doesn't rise up, translated in human life, in human nature, this is what explains when a person is looking up to the Neshama, when a person is not. In other words, these two things are correlated. What is symbolized? What is significance of the Chometz rising up? Huh? Right, elevating. And we say that it means in a way the gaiva, whatever. What is gaiva?
You feel your hand, you
Or right. But you have to know like this, that there's a possible say Vayigva Liboy Beidaki Hashem. Vayigva Liboy, I don't remember which Melech, one of the Jewish kings said, Vayigva Liboy Beidaki Hashem, his heart was elevated by the ways of God. A person has to be about Gaiva by saying, by knowing that he is doing Avodas Hashem. One mustn't be submissive, mustn't be embarrassed. By can't he has to come out David Barchova. I'm not embarrassed in front of kings. Why? Because I serve God. Yidden are not supposed to be submissive as sheep. They're supposed to stand up strongly and proudly. And, who are you? David HaMelech stood up to Goliath Aplishti, this huge giant, and when he feared him, David HaMelech, a little David, and he stood up to him and he said, "Who are you? How do you come to fight me? I'm representing Hashem, and you're fighting me. You are nothing." So Gaiva is really a bad meter, but we have to understand what it means. It's a bad meter, and this is to be understood from this chometz. How does chometz rise? See, there are two ways to rise. There's the way chometz rises, and the way the neshama rises. Chometz rises like this. It is water and flour. That's all it is. And it's just this little piece of dough. And it doesn't become anything. It doesn't acquire anything more. Just a piece of dough. And it says, "Look, who I am dough. I have flour and water." And he begins to he presents, so to speak, his physicality. He says, "Look who I am. I have such a muscle. I have such a." It's all based on his physical presence, and becomes proud from his physical presence. There is nothing to it. It's just a physical presence, and the physical presence itself rises upwards. That's Gaiva. This is Gaiva that has no room. This is Gaiva of chometz that destroys a person. But there is a different type of Gaiva. There's a Gaiva like of a hay. When there is an influx, there is a shine of the neshama in the person that elevates him, because there is spirituality that elevates him. Spirituality that elevates him, that also elevates, but it's not elevated from the dough itself, from the goof. It's elevated from the neshama. That elevation is a godly elevation. This is something which must be present. This is the difference between chometz and matzah. Matzah also has the elevation. He's looking upwards. But where is he getting his inspiration? He's getting inspiration from godliness, from ruchnius. Chometz doesn't need inspiration from above. I can take care of myself. What is the whole meaning of the chometz? The chometz rises, and it makes it sort of the dough enhances its taste. This matzah is just plain taste of flour and water, and this enhances its taste. It's same flour, and fools you that there is something more to it than just flour and water. But really, it makes the same flour and water. Nothing is added to it. When you have an opening from above, like the hay, and there's an influx of neshama, then this is a different kind of a gaiva. However, in order to get this other type of gaiva, that you should be open to the influx and to the inspiration of the neshama, and not basing yourself on the gaiva of the goof. This is what we need. We need that hay. We need matzah. We need that there should be bittul. We said chometz rises up, matzah doesn't rise, which implies the influence of bittul. And I'll explain the influence of bittul. Bittul, this is the keli, this is the means by which a person becomes aware of his neshama. And this is where that opening of the hay becomes influential. and is able to shine and to influence. I'm sure you heard the terminology of Yeshus and people. And surely you heard that matzah, that chometz represents Yeshus, and matzah represents people. And just to discuss this briefly, what is this Yeshus and the people? Like we said before, chometz is where you have this dough, this physical thing, nothing more. And that thing which it is, this itself begins to ferment and begins to rise up. In our life, we all recognize, so to speak, our presence in the world and this which the Rebbe made us, what our capabilities are, and so forth. The question is, what is the function, what is the meaning of these capabilities? Let us say a person has a good head, but he has a talent, he is musical, he is artistic, whatever it may be. If he would focus in on this particular talent that he has a good head, and he's able to excel over all these friends, and pick up things much more quickly and so forth. And he focuses on that particular advantage that he has. He has a good head. This itself becomes, so to speak, its own end, its own purpose, to excel with this particular capability. This is chometz. This is where the dough itself rises. If one understands that this capability and this talent that a person has to receive its inspiration from above, it has to be a means by which he brings the godly inspiration into the world. If he has a good head, so he has to be able to understand higher things and give it over. He has to be able to, if he has a musical talent, the purpose of musical talent is to inspire, not just to show off what he is able to do. This is the difference between the chometz and the matzah. In the chometz, everything is just focused on this particular piece of dough. I have this talent. This is what I'm focused on, and this is what makes me the person that I am. In matzah, I have the same dough, but this becomes a means. If I have this talent, the purpose of this talent is to bring the godly inspiration in the shoma and the godly purpose, and utilize this talent to express that which Rebbe wants to express, not for its own sake, not just to enhance my own presence, like chometz enhances its own presence. So this small difference between the ches and the hay, between the chometz and the matzah, where you are aware that there is an opening on top, you're aware that whatever you have is for the purpose of bringing that spirit that comes through the stop opening, is in bringing it down and to illuminate the world, then it's matzah. You can be the biggest balgaida. so to speak, allegorically speaking. But your gaiva is not from yourself. Now, the gaiva is not from your own accomplishment. Your gaiva is from the greatness of the Meibishter, from the greatness that there is in the Neshama. That, on the contrary, a person has to be proud of. Chometz does not have an opening to the top, does not have an inspiration coming from above. And therefore, it's all focused on his yeshes. This is an interesting phenomenon. There are, institutions of learning, higher learning. It's called higher education. And there are professors who are, genius minds, who have an enormous amount of knowledge. And they spend their whole days and nights in studies. And these very same professors that spend their days and nights in studies are in their own lives and in their own interests are the smallest and the most so to speak, lightweight people. They have absolutely no ideas, absolutely no significance in their lives. If you would know what's going on among the professors, the bickering and the politics that's going on, it's unbelievable. There's absolutely no significance in all that. Like, what did I study? What did I learn? What is it for? Nothing. The fact that I have produced this knowledge, that's what counts. The whole thing is a chometz environment. The whole thing is a chometz environment. It is the rising of the dough. It is not bringing down the spirit from above. We know different. I said this is not a question of self-nullification. It is a question of knowing what is significant in life. And absolutely excelling in everything that you can and being proud of it. But the pride comes from the fact that I am the instrument by which the godly spirit comes to the world. And this chometz, this matzah, which substituted the chometz, this was the first mitzvah. This was the means by which the Eden were able to come out of Mitzrayim. Because by Korban Pesach and they ate matzah, then that's when they came out of Mitzrayim, and this was the first step. Preparing to go into Merkabel Torah. Yes, sir.
For our whole avoda is to become bittul, right? So why do we only eat it matzah on 8 days? Why not substitute it year round? Or is, instead of bread all the time? Or is it not the...
Well, that we'll talk about time. On the contrary, on Pesach there is the time of matzah, and Shavuos is supposed to eat chametz. Because ultimately, what we have to accomplish is to bring the aspect of matzah into the world, even the place where of chametz.
Why do we burn the
Hmm?
Why do we burn chametz?
Because chometz at the time of matzah interferes. You have to burn it out.
Is that the reason? That's the only reason why?
Yeah. In order to, I wonder, in order to recognize that my whole pride, my whole pride is only from the Avodas Hashem rather than from the chometz, from my own mitzvahs. That has to be completely eradicated. Any little bit of thought, any most remote thought that I'm also something and that being my own enhancing my own pride is also something, that already interferes with the whole thing. That part has to be completely eliminated. And then you become a keli for the spirit, for the real thing. See, this is a very subtle thing, and it's very easy to be mistaken.
Question.
Mhm.
Is there like Kabbalic purpose why we burn it? Besides, or it's like God's statement, I mean God's, it's in the Torah that says that we need to do it. I mean, of course not. Sorry for asking.
No, it's fine. You can ask the questions. And that's Kabbalah and so forth. I'm interested that we should understand its significance in our Avodah. Because this significance in our Avodah is constant. This is what we need to fully understand. In summation, the point of this is that no matter at what point where a person is, like we said right in the beginning of the Pasha, Hashem says to Moshe, go over Hisro and you warn Pari, even though Pari is such a low level that I'm preventing him from doing tshuva. Nevertheless, he too has to be spoken to and warned. Maybe he'll awaken, maybe he'll force his way in. For us, this means, in much more direct terms, that under all circumstances, no matter where a person is, and that we always have ups and downs. Sometimes we're in a very low spirits, very, very almost on a depressed spiritual level. It is imperative, a must that we always remember that there is always the opening to the top. Even if we don't feel it, we seem to be like chometz. I'm completely into myself and I don't feel any inspiration. I'm just me, just the chometz. So we have to know that nevertheless that there is always an opening upwards, and if we just control this chometz and allow a little bit beetle, the spirit is going to come. And this is actually the principle of Nasa v'Nishma. Nasa v'Nishma means that if I just do the right thing, even if I don't have any feel for it, eventually the feel and the understanding will come. Because it's there all the time, just like the example of the finger with the cut. So Hashem should help each one of us that we should always remember to catch ourselves. Always remember that there is always an opening upwards, and that opening has always the inspiration and always the strength to elevate us from whatever situation we're And sometimes, in order to receive it, in order to relate to it, even if you don't understand it, just have the detail, just have the submission, and follow through and do the right thing, that alone sometimes may be the way to receive it, even if you don't understand it. Just by knowing the truth that the hay is always has an opening on top. Yes, sir.
Wondering, Rabbi, Paro's sixth day, on the sixth day, Hashem didn't allow him to, he hardened his heart so much that he wasn't going back, that he, through the first to the sixth day, Hashem always gave him the opportunity to do tshuva, and then the rest of the days, after the sixth day, I believe, he went so far that he couldn't do the tshuva. So is it fair to say that Hashem gave Paro the hay, but then by the sixth day it was the kuf, that Hashem locked that seal, that he couldn't do tshuva anymore, or was it that Paro himself wouldn't allow himself to do tshuva on the remainder of the days?
I don't know. There are different markets. Sometimes Paro himself didn't do tshuva. Sometimes it's by Chazik Paro himself hardened his heart. In other words, he was just about to give in, and then he pulled back. And there's a couple of times where it says, "My Chazik Hashem is not Paro." Hashem gave him the strength to overcome. All right, so the message, so to speak, of this whole pasha of the Yisroel Pareh and the Chometz and the Matzah is that even if we feel like we are Chometz, in the sense that we don't feel the spirit at all, we feel just the Metzias, the low down. We must not, as Sholem, give in and say, okay, that's all there is, and then start just allowing the chometz to ferment. The whole avodah of matzah is not to allow the chometz to ferment, and how do you prevent chometz from dough from fermenting? When we do. Continue to knead it. Continue to work on it. If we continue to work on it, eventually it gets purified, and eventually you begin to get back the spirit, and get back the elevation. And the main thing is to remember that all this labor is in order to bring the light and to fulfill the mission that we have in life. And that way it will grow without any limit. Like this, a person sets a limit. He says, okay, I have enough. We never have enough, because we always have what to do, because the Rabbi is always there, and the Rabbi always wants us to do every day a little more, a little more, a little more. So the Rebbe should help that we should maintain our spirit at all times, and even main thing is, even when we fall down, we should be able to pick ourselves up. This is the most important thing.